day and welcome to the 6th episode of the HEARTcare Podcast and Learn series. This coach podcast series will teach you about workplace well-being while prompting you to be physically active and mentally engaged. My name is Dr. Astrid Kendrick, and I've been studying compassion fatigue and burnout in educational workers since early 2020. This podcast series is one of the outcomes of my research program, as participants have asked for different ways to learn and feel better at their own pace and in their own space. This episode will feature the work and insight of School Superintendent Chris Fuzessy, who has been studying workplace well-being and is the author of a newly released book for school leaders called Eminate, a true story of overcoming ill-being and discovering hope, strength, and positive mental health. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. It's nice to be here with you both today. Thank you.
And as always, Pat is here too. Hi, Pat.
It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Before we get started in our learning today, choose a walking path that is about 3 kilometers in length. Keep an eye out for tripping hazards and make sure you are dressed for the weather. Not in the mood for a walk? Never a problem. Choose an activity that will keep you busy for about 35 minutes. If you have a tracking device, press start and let's get going. Today's episode will focus on 4 prompts for building workplace well-being through leading a positive school and system culture. Chris, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
My name is Chris Fuzessy. I'm the Superintendent of Schools at Foothills School Division, which is just south of Calgary. I've been in this role for 7 years, and I guess that focus on workplace well-being has, really emerged a lot during that 7-year tenure. I'll take us back to a time that was very challenging for all of us, the pandemic. And I think that's when my focus really emerged in this area. And now more than ever, I think we need to be well at work in order to assume the mission and the responsibilities which are given to us as educators in the public education system.
Thanks, Chris. As you're listening to this first song, think about this idea of flourishing. What does that mean to you? And how do you think you can make flourishing a part of your everyday work?
Take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling. You wanna know is how to hold on to it every moment. Dive into it like my love is an ocean. It's overflowing. I swear it's golden. So good that I'm rolling. Baby, you make me crazy. I'm seeing roses. Baby, just maybe you save me. Oh, take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine. Take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling.
As you'll remember from previous episodes, 2 ways to embed well-being into your daily work is through shifting routines and attuning to workplace culture. Routines are the predictable and identifiable processes that ensure the completion of tasks. These become so embedded into your everyday work that they occur pretty much without thought. Workplace culture is the overall feeling or vibe of a place. It's the often invisible undercurrent that reveals itself through our professional relationships, school values and vision, and yearly priorities. Chris, in your book, you discuss 4 mantras. How did reflection inform your growth as a leader?
One of the things that I recognized over time as I went through this deep reflective process and I guess started to apply some of that research to the system that I work within, that I lead alongside those that I work with, is this concept of what I call mantras. And I'll say up front that we're going to talk about 4 of those today. 3 of them I will credit someone else for having shared with me. And when I heard them, they resonated really deeply and have become part of my practice. I think the power of these different mantras, to relate it to that concept of ritual, is reflection. They provide time, if you can embed them into your practice, to sit and think, to take the time to pause and not react, and to delve into the questions themselves and the mantras themselves as a thinking routine or thinking process that helps develop boundaries and helps one determine what they can and can't contribute to at any given point in time. So this takes ongoing practice and it takes work. And the first of those is, who does this serve? I work with a coaching counselor, and she's gifted in serving up these questions and these statements at times that really stop me in my mental tracks and make me think deeply about what the meaning of that statement is. And when I heard this one for the first time, who does this serve? It was a time during the pandemic when I was wrestling, as I said, with trying to make the community happy, and realized that action, or that series of actions that I was taking, was not serving me in the longer term, because it was leading to burnout, frankly, and unhappiness in my work on an ongoing basis and an everyday basis. I do a lot of journaling. That's the routine that I embed this in, but it doesn't have to take place in that way. It can be something that you embed into conversation with a trusted thought partner or colleague. But it's important to find a routine, I think, that works for you. And embedding that mantra into that routine allows for you to think through different situations and come to a conclusion that works for you and serves you in that particular moment. We can't be 100% all of the time. We need to grant one another grace in those instances. And when we're not feeling 100%, who are we serving if we take on additional work? And what does that look like in the longer term? I've found this a very helpful way to help decide what I can work with, what I am going to put off to a later date, and what is an urgency. Because often we're faced with urgencies that are someone else's urgency. And how do we then determine how we can react to that with respect, with poise, and with grace, and allow ourselves to set our own boundaries in that way.
So, my friend, as you're listening to this second song, really think about what Chris just talked about in terms of taking the time to think to yourself, who does this serve? What kind of message does that send about the work that you do and the way that you serve others? Through my own research, I've learned that setting boundaries, while important to ensuring positive mental health, is very difficult for teachers and school leaders. When it comes to caring for children and youth, as well as the adults who serve them, it can be tempting to be available to help and problem solve at all times. Chris, what have you learned about setting boundaries in your personal and professional life? Or when is it enough?
As you just mentioned, there's a sense of urgency to a lot of what we work with, whether as teachers, as teacher leaders, as system leaders. People bring forward wonders and concerns on an ongoing basis that we could easily opt into when it's not necessarily something that serves us, to go back to that prior mantra. But a question was shared with me at one point in one of our coaching conversations. Well, when is it enough? This was specific to, I had been talking about at the time in the different roles I've played over the course of my career in education, always wanting to go on and to try something new. What is the next role that I could perhaps have a different impact with? And this question was posed to me, well, Chris, when is it enough? And that really prompted a lot of deep reflection on what is it am I trying to achieve at the end of a career or at the end of a day? And I think it applies to these situations that we come across on a daily basis as well. When is it enough to take on additional tasks? When is it enough to, assist a parent or a colleague in a way that perhaps isn't something you have capacity to do on any particular day? How do we set boundaries in that way? And I think it has helped me to ask this question when new opportunities come up. For example, a new committee opportunity might be available in your district and you have a passion about that particular topic. You also have a lot on your plate, both personally and professionally, as well as hobbies that you want to continue to maintain and attend to for your own well-being. Asking that question, when is it enough, brings it back to purpose in a sense. Perhaps that committee work is essential to advancing your professional practice and is important enough for you to forego some of the other things that are important to you for a time period. Or perhaps you can attend to a new committee only one day a week when they're meeting several days a week. So it prompts conversation, internal reflection and conversation.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's really interesting. So as you're listening to this next song, think about those extra commitments that perhaps you're getting offers to do some fantastic new project or join a committee, as Chris talked about. What are you already doing that you find fulfilling in your work? And what are some of the things that you might be able to let go so that you can take advantage of new opportunities without burning yourself out? And then think a little bit more about, do these commitments add to your sense of purpose or meaning? And if they don't add value to your work life, can you let them go?
In the mid-2010s, researcher Carol Dweck introduced the concept of the growth mindset. Having a growth mindset refers to an individual's ability to acknowledge their own limitations and mistakes as temporary and correctable, rather than seeing one's abilities and intelligence as fixed and unchanging. Her theory suggested that growth was always possible throughout a person's lifespan. Chris, can you tell me how you've adapted Dweck's concepts and the fact that we're all in process?
That is another mantra that I will share with colleagues, but also remind myself of on an ongoing basis, that we're all in process. I spent a lot of time reflecting on this after the first time I heard it, or it was offered to me as something to consider and reflect upon. I find it helpful to understand my own reactions to new informations or situations, but it also helps me understand how others may react or act in any given situation. Change is a constant, yet we are creatures who thrive, individuals who thrive in structure and in routine. And this seems to be a contradiction in many ways. You know, we set up our schools, we set up our classrooms with routines early in the school year, so there's a predictability for students, and students thrive in those situations. As adults, we also thrive in routine, and I think we tend to sometimes forget that we're all growing, we're all changing, and we're all in process on an ongoing basis. I mean, to take this to a cellular level, our bodies are regenerating on a daily basis from a cellular perspective. And so change is a constant. One of the things that I've learned in my work as a teacher, as a school leader and a system leader, is that we tend to clamor for change in our environments. And then we tend to, I say this respectfully, complain when change happens. And I think a big part of that is that struggle between routine structure, what our identity is within that predictable environment, and then where do we find our place in a new environment after change has occurred. Bringing it back to we're all in process, I think grants us grace as individuals to adapt, to be able to, I guess, pay tribute to the emotions that may arise when change occurs, and also to find our place over time in whatever that change may be. We see this unfolding in our classrooms on a daily basis. Students change, they grow, they evolve, they learn. Why would we not apply that same grace to ourselves as adults in our workplace and in our own learning and professional capacity and growth over time? So it's another mantra that I find helpful to remind myself to slow things down, to see what I might be reacting to and why. And all of these different mantras that I'm sharing with you do feed into one another, because when you start considering we're all in process, well, what is it I'm reacting to? Who is this really serving? When is it enough? They feed into one another if you can find a routine and dedicate some time to allowing yourself that pause to reflect and consider what is best for you in that moment and what you can commit to moving forward.
As you listen to this next song, think about your experience with change and with keeping the status quo. Was the change necessary? Did it add purpose to your work, or did you feel like it was change for change's sake?
Multiple researchers have found that attuning to one's values and aligning personal and professional values can have a strong and positive influence on workplace well-being. In their book, The Burnout Challenge, Christina Maslach and Michael Leader asserted that mismatched values can intensify workplace burnout. Ward and Deneve, in Why Workplace Well-Being Matters, found that people can report having stressful and difficult jobs, but if they find meaning or purpose in their work, they will report higher levels of job satisfaction. Chris, how has your view of values alignment changed or shifted over time?
It shifted in one moment quite significantly. I had been talking with my coach about some plans that we had for our district moving forward, and the statement was made that your values guide the organization. And I rejected this immediately. I did not want to see the truth in it. And over time, in considering that, realized that the reason I rejected that out of hand was because that is quite an awesome responsibility. If your values guide the entire work of the organization, then significant time must be put into deciding what those values are and what impact they're going to have in concert with the values of the organization itself. And so following that moment, I gave a lot of time and reflection to what those personal values are, if they are in fact guiding the work of our whole Foothills School Division. And what I came to a conclusion on was those personal core values for me are creativity, curiosity, courage, caring, and humility. And when I think about those values and I think about the plans that we have, or I think about, emerging challenges that come along in all of the work that we do, how do I align those values with the interventions, the interactions, the reactions, the actions that I have? As educators, I think we're very fortunate in a sense to work in a field where there's built-in purpose, and finding alignment between our personal values and the values of the organization is probably a little bit easier in this sense than in the business world, for example. And so finding a space for curiosity and creativity in education seems almost obvious when we think about classrooms. It seems less obvious as adults when we think about our professional development and our professional capacity and our professional learning, and how we infuse that into our practice to come back to values, to come back to purpose, and to find that passion in the work. It's easy to attach humility to the work, but it becomes something that is modeled from a leadership perspective. And that includes teachers from my perspective, because they're modeling to their classrooms and their colleagues the values that they hold dear. The other piece I think it's easy to align with is, it's legislated that we create cultures of belonging, but creating that culture of belonging is a great opportunity to look at the values that you bring forward, what drove you into the field of education, what your passions are, and how you can bring that forward to continue enthusiastically engaging in the work, even in those times. So I think values alignment is essential to positive workplace culture and also positive individual workplace well-being. Takes work, of course, to determine what they are and how you can infuse them into the work that your school or your organization is doing.
That's really great. And I like to also add that one of my core values is compassion. And so one of the things that I've certainly found is that one of the ways to relieve compassion fatigue and burnout is in fact through compassion. So during this next song, think about what you value in your position. If you're similar to the teachers and school leaders I've spoken with over the years, your first thought is related to improving the lives of children and youth. In what way do your core of values align or misalign with your school mission and vision? If you're out for a walk, you should be making your way back to your home base. As always, use this final part of the podcast to increase your heart rate to get more benefits from physical activity. For a change of pace, I'm going to do a couple walking lunges and then walk backwards to stretch out my shins. Whoops! Almost tripped. Maybe walking backwards was a bad idea. Tweaking your routines can influence the overall school culture, especially if you're a leader or mentor to others. Your commitment to improving your well-being will serve as permission for others to do the same. The sharing of values and prioritizing of well-being can help build a strong and inclusive school community. Chris, how do you conceptualize community as it relates to working in a school?
The work that we do as educators is at its very core community building. I think it's the heart of the work, in my humble opinion, to build community, whether that be in the classroom community, the school-wide community, or the system-wide community within the larger communities that we serve. There's a lot of interrelatedness and interconnectedness in the work that we do. As human beings, people matter. We do people work. We do relationship building work on an ongoing basis. And when I think about all of those things and those concepts, they define schools. They define school systems. So in supporting our students and supporting our parents and supporting our colleagues in learning and growing, and that also applies to ourselves as individuals, we're in interrelationship. We can work towards creating these positive cultures of belonging for all. We're wired as human beings to be in social contact with one another, and that can look different for every individual. I'm introverted at heart, and so I need time at the end of the day to sit with no one. I also, by Friday, don't want to talk to an individual that's not part of my close circle, and probably Saturday around noon or even later than that. Others have different approaches to the work and want to be surrounded by other individuals in community on an ongoing basis, and respecting those differences is part of creating that culture of belonging and that community within the school communities and the systems we lead. We each contribute, and each contribution matters. Each individual matters, and the work itself within that context to me matters, because we're building community in a world and in an era where I think it's even more important than ever before to be that positive sense of interrelationship, interconnectedness, and respectful interactions, so that we can model that for our students and our communities, and perhaps over time have a bigger positive impact in Albertan society, Canadian society, and globally. So that's why I bring it back to community, because if we don't dedicate ourselves to that, I'm not sure we can have that positive impact over time.
That's really neat. Thank you so much. So as we finish up our walk, consider your school as a community. How are new students and staff welcomed into your school? In what ways do you help build a sense of belonging for everyone? Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and to Chris for sharing his insights. Until next time, visit the HEARTcare Educators website at www.heartcareeducators.ca for more information or resources, and consider reading Chris's new book to dig more deeply into building workplace well-being. Special shout out to the producers and editors on this series, Pat Hanlon and Zach DeMello. In the words of Henry Boyle, the most important trip you may take is meeting people halfway. Thank you for listening.